everyone. Welcome to another virtual visit. I'm David Mustonen, Director of Communications for the Dearborn Public Schools, enjoying the nice outside air today on a nice sunny day. Joining us today, as always, our Superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleyko. Glenn, welcome.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Great, great. Also
Good.
joining us today is our Executive Director of Student Achievement, one of three, Miss Shannon Peterson. Shannon, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Great. How's everybody doing?
Outstanding, outstanding. Glenn, a busy time ever
Yeah.
since the governor launched gave her latest order and talked about closing schools for the rest of the year. We had a show, we talked about that. School closed for the remainder of the year, not learning, just the school buildings closed for the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
We are still doing quite a bit. And part of that order that the governor came out with is that we need to develop, every school district in the state needs to develop what's called a continuity of learning plan. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, correct?
Yes, yeah, we're going to get into some of the detail of that. And I just want to say that when the governor came out on the Thursday, our team was already on it. In fact, the document was started to be created as the governor was making the announcement. We had some of the unofficial press releases that came out, and then the official releases that came out, and they were already working on that plan. And so it's something that's required under her order. I believe it was about a 17 to 20 page order, if I recall. I did read through the entire order so that I had a good understanding of it. I've also consulted with our legal counsel, so I know all the legal provisions. I also want to give the governor and her team credit for the order. I think the order was very, very well written. It gave a lot of good direction. It gave authority to schools. It was very clear about what needs to be provided with students, but it also gave a lot of options to local districts to be creative and to meet the needs of their local student body and their local community. So I think that's excellent. The other thing they did is that they kind of decentralized the approval process, which I think is important. So the approval process goes to Dr. Randy Lipa and his team at the Wayne County RESA ISD. For Wayne County and all the ISDs across the state. That's a much better process, given the current crisis, in my mind, that we have a local individual that's very familiar with our district, looking at the needs of our district, approving the plan versus maybe a centralized plan that would be a massive bureaucracy going out. So I want to give kudos to the governor's office. And I would say, part of the reason I think that did come out is because she and her administration have always been willing to reach out with the Superintendent Association and others when they're developing these. They actively seek input before coming out with legislation or orders. So I want to say that I was very pleased to see some of the things, despite the fact that I'm disappointed that we physically won't be there. Again, we talked about this last week with the students from Forts, and there is a big picture at play here.
Absolutely, absolutely. But much bigger picture at play, and I think you really nailed it when you said that the local authorization of the plan. Every county's ISD will be able to approve the plans for the districts that reside within that county. I think that's huge in putting this all
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
So, Glenn, the governor's plan, she put into the requirements for each district some very specific things that our continuity plan needs to have. Maybe you can outline a couple of those for us.
Yeah, correct. So it is clear that we do have to meet a day requirement through this plan, but she is giving the ability to waive 13 days. Plus, we're able to use our snow days that we may have saved up. We actually have 2 left over. And we can use 5 additional professional development days to meet the 180-day requirement. So that is an important aspect, because if you do not meet the 180-day requirement, then you don't get your full state aid foundation funding from the state. So that is probably one of the most important provisions. But within that, what she is saying, and it's a change from the previous direction we had on, you must have enrichment learning. Now districts do have the ability to put in their plan required learning. The districts have the ability to grade and to give credit and or to pass fail or give credit. And our guest here is going to probably talk about that a little bit, but that's another important aspect, that we can require learning. Now, we cannot harm any student that doesn't have access potentially, but we have other ways. It doesn't just have to be online. We can make, for example, mail packets, mail information. So our team is currently looking at those different options. So one of the things that local districts can require is learning, and we're required to do learning. We're required to continue. So that's important. There's some provisions in there to ensure that you're providing some support for special education students. Another provision is that you need to have all within the plan, make sure that all of your employees are getting paid. And so we're going to look to continue with that. We will. And we are considering all our employees after spring break officially working. Another provision is the food service. And so we started that right away. We're giving out now about 60,000 meals a week. So we're meeting all the main requirements. And there will be some detail that the team is currently working on that we may not be ready yet to make public because we have to wait for approval. But I know that's why we also have Ms. Peterson here, who's going to talk about some of the work that's been going on over the last week.
Well, yeah, that's why we brought the expert in today. So, Ms. Peterson, Shannon, thanks for taking a few minutes to join us. I know you and your team, and actually Dr. Chokol, Mr. Asali, Ms. Faraj, I know the four of you have really been working on this right from the get-go and have been busy these past few days working with many, many different stakeholders about putting together this plan. Maybe explain to us some of the things that you and all the many different staff members have been involved doing.
So we really began working early last week on remote learning. And actually, prior to that, when we did find out about the shutdown, we had been putting things into place to prepare our teachers for this possibility. But in the last week and a half, we have met today, for example, from 9 to 4 with K2 kindergarten through second grade teachers, third grade through fifth grade teachers, sixth through eighth grade teachers, and ninth through 12th grade teachers who gave up time during their spring break to weigh in and give us some input on this plan, as well as administrators we've met with, and our whole instructional team, which includes our compensatory ed and English learner department, special education department, and curriculum departments. We really have been talking nonstop. My computer's become my friend. I have been in Google Hangouts for about a week and a half now, collaborating with all of the instructional staff in the district to determine how best to move forward to serve our students so that they don't have an enormous amount of learning loss and we keep them learning.
And Shannon, I know too, like some of the provisions that you're doing, and this is spring break. So technically, and we're saying that we're off. I mean, I know it's like no other spring break, and I hope everyone is in this new world having a good spring break with their families. I know we can't travel, but a lot of teachers and staff have been working, even though it's technically their week off. They've been coming in voluntarily, and I also know that is a requirement. So by the fact that you guys are willing, and the teachers and administrators, it's required, are willing to come in and have all these committee meetings, we appreciate it first and foremost, but it's also required so that we can get that plan going to recess so that we can start our official learning, as soon as we can. Can you speak to us? And I know you might not have an answer, but one of the big things that's going to come up is grading and credit, pass, fail, those things. How are your discussions going in those areas?
So that's been a very passionate conversation, especially with high school teachers, because we don't want to do any harm, but we want to honor the work that our students are doing. But really, grading should be about the evidence of learning, and if we focus on that, we will serve all of our students well. Really, what are they doing well? Where do they need assistance? I've seen so many amazing things from our staff in the last 3 weeks. Videos, one-on-one tutoring, Google Hangouts. Students are getting a lot of feedback from teachers in this mode of learning, which is amazing when you think about it. But it really has to be about the evidence of learning so that we can give students, it's becoming really individualized. What do they need individually to improve and keep moving their learning forward? It's been amazing.
Well, I think
So
too, that's another concern is, which is, I know that the federal government has laxed some standards or has been relaxed on enforcing some things when it comes to IEPs and special needs students and things like that. That doesn't mean that we're going to stop providing instruction to those students. Uh, correct? And that's
Correct.
part of what you're doing in putting this plan together.
And Executive Director Asali has been really focused, his special education staff and our English learner department, on how do we provide supports? What does that look like? How do we document those supports so that our students are not falling through the cracks and we're meeting the needs of all? And we have two outstanding departments and leaders in those departments that are helping us, and they are on the forefront. And not to mention, we have teachers that passionately through the whole day today, we're advocating for those students as well.
Great.
Yeah, and I appreciate, those are important provisions. Some of the discussions too within there, Shannon, of just making sure, because the governor's order does say that, students can't be harmed if they aren't able to access certain materials. So I'm assuming, there's been some deep discussions that, how teachers are going to communicate with students, whether that be through Google Hangouts or other phone or email and other things. So
We
how
had
are those?
many conversations come up today. Some special education teachers said that they had parents who just needed to hear their voice. Then they trusted working on the computer. So our teachers are aware that it's going to be a phone call. It might be a text. It might be through Class Dojo. It might be through computer, the Google Hangouts. But they are really working. They're reaching out to parents in so many different ways. And I will say, for the Do No Harm, we were talking 3 weeks ago in the remote learning to really, when we started talking about enrichment, that if a student during that time demonstrated proficiency of a standard that maybe they covered before March 11th, that we did go back and give them that credit, because we want our grades to reflect what a student knows and is able to do. And that is just critical for not only the student, the parents, but also next year's teachers to know how to help a student and move them forward. So we have a lot of passion in this district, and I'm blessed to be a part of it.
Do we have any deadlines that we're looking at here with this plan, and what are some of those deadlines if they exist?
Well, we can start submitting as of today, I believe, but we are not going to rush it. It has to be turned in by April 28th, and we have to begin by then. So we are not rushing the plan. We're trying to be very thoughtful, but I am proud to say we have many things in place. So we distributed Chromebooks before we had to distribute Chromebooks, and we're talking about another wave of providing that. We distributed information about internet for families that don't have internet with those Chromebooks before the state told us we had to do that. And so Dearborn has really is ahead of the game in many of those areas.
Great.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And thank all the staff members who have been coming forward to try to put this plan together. It's huge, but it's integral, it's needed, and it is something that we have to do, but it sounds like we're in good shape. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to come. I know part of the plan includes how are we going to be communicating it out to the parents. So I know we will be doing that as well, whether it be here on our social media, on our website, through the school's websites, through all the variety of platforms that we use for those communications tools. We will be utilizing all of those to help get that information out to the parents. Dr. Peterson, thanks so much for being with us today. Glenn, thank you. Appreciate it very much. And thank all of you for taking a few minutes to stop by and visit with us. And we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.